Welcome to Activist Part 4. At the end of Part 3, I left a 4-person WhatsApp group that I had been in for a total of 7 days. I felt strongly that Australia and Greece were making choices that were not wise or ethical in regard to this story, and so I decided to walk away quietly. I didn't think I would ever speak to them again, and I didn't think there would be any problem. I was thankful that they had introduced me to Erdes, who was a spectacular researcher and who was becoming a great friend. Meanwhile, I was about a month and a half into my own research on this story. I was starting to talk about specific things happening that I felt people needed to look at. I was in regular contact with the Cherokee County Sheriff Department, who, after I made one report, followed up with me several times, asking for more info, having phone calls and emails with me. At one point, they decided that their investigation was going to stop. I don't agree with that choice, but that does not mean I have any beef with them. And I want to say that it is really peculiar that Diane put in the court papers that I was allegedly wanting to sue the police department. That is not something I ever said, so I want to make sure I put that out there. In light of the information that law enforcement might not be looking at this anymore, I decided to hold a space to say, you know what? We will be here holding space saying there is something going on here. I stand by that decision. I always held that space ethically, respectfully, with regard for every party's safety, well-being, etc. Nothing is really controversial about anything that happened here on my part, and that makes everything really strange. I was not an established TikTok creator. I was very unknown with a small platform, and because of that, a lot of people would come ask questions like, who the hell is this girl? And every time somebody left any comment on Reddit with my name in it, this is what happened. There was Australia loudly, ominously warning thousands of people to stay away from me, making bold, false claims that I was attacking her, falsely suggesting that she was being chased around the internet by a person who wouldn't leave her alone. I was not speaking of her, about her, or to her. But when she would show up all over the internet, on TikTok and on Reddit, and say nasty things about me, I would click reply and I would ask her to stop. She was giving people false information that I felt was very, very sensitive and problematic to everything that was being done. Australia had seen half of a screenshot that I accidentally sent to her, Greece, and Erdes instead of just Erdes that was saying the results of what the police had done at the time. But there were multiple agencies working on this, which is why later she started reporting that the investigation was still ongoing. Australia was constantly working with little pieces of information provided by other people, and that's okay, but you have to know who you are in a story. And in my position, it was also important for me to know who I was talking to, and in this case, it was so early on that I hadn't learned that lesson yet. When I saw that things were not up to the level that I expected them to be, I bowed out peacefully. The fact that Australia and Greece felt compelled and entitled to speak about me the way that they did speaks to a larger issue of the way that people engage online. But it's not just the regular bullying, trolling stuff. The implications here are really serious. It was the groundwork set by the behavior of these people that led to massive, cruel bullying and things that actually really did impact my safety and jeopardized this case in many ways. When I was doxxed in late October, the first thing that they did was they went to one of Australia's posts and they duetted it. And it was up for several hours with my name, as you can see, but also more private information. They knew that someone who disliked me might just leave up that private information. The only reason this came down several hours later was because Erdes reached out to her and said, hey, you need to remove that. Australia removed a couple of her posts, but then she continued to do the same thing. Why does she constantly come for me? I don't understand. I don't know how you didn't understand, Australia. You are a stranger off the internet, and you added me to a WhatsApp chat for a week. And when our values did not align, I walked away. The fact that you spoke about me for months, it put me in danger, and I don't say that lightly. It incited mobs of people. Most parties in this story will never be held accountable in any way, nor do I harbor any feelings that I need to get out about them. Australia is named Australia because that is where she lives, and Greece is from Greece. But Greece has another reason why he would not be held responsible for this. I almost skipped this part of the story because it's so much less consequential than everything else. If you lack context for the story, I could see why you would look at this and go, who cares? It's somebody calling you a name, like we've all been through that. I'm not concerned about a bunch of internet strangers whose self-respect is so low that they spend their days leaving thousands of anonymous comments on snark groups, pretending that that's an okay thing to do. Last night, somebody posted in the Not Your Bonnie snark group that they felt I had a vendetta, and that was why I was telling this story. Has it ever occurred to you that you are the ones with the vendetta? Because you're a group of people who have banded together to be mad about something that you've never been able to articulate. Because all of the claims you've made about me are false. One thing I've heard repeatedly is that people don't think I'm good at my child safety platform. And if I had a child safety platform, I might be offended, but that's not what my platform is about. So given the fact that you're not able to articulate what I even do in the world, do you think maybe you might have misinterpreted it? In part 4, I introduced you to a lot of anonymous characters, but in part 5, I'm going to show you a few people who showed their name, their face, and one of them has already ended up in prison. You are not going to want to miss what happens next.